Hello friends, welcome to the introduction course to the Great Depression. I'm sure you've been putting this one off for quite a while. You're thinking, why would I take a class on the Great Depression? What is so great about depression? Well, in this case, we're not talking about a mental health issue of any kind. We are talking about a moment of history, a moment of trial, a moment of challenge and difficulty beyond anything the world has ever faced before. In this case, by depression, we're talking about a time of economic downturn, a time when companies were going out of business, a time where schools were closing because there was just no funding, no tax money, nothing to fund schools, a time where roads were falling apart, government agencies were not receiving money, and so there was vast unemployment. In fact, at the culmination of this, over 13 million people were suddenly thrown out of work. Stock market crash. And in the midst of all this was another event called the Dust Bowl. We're going to cover that in detail as well in this course, because the Dust Bowl knocked out the food. There was about a 10-year drought from 1930 to about 1940, where there just was very limited crops being grown across our nation. And so people were hungry and suffering, and they tried all sorts of things to try to get out of this depression. So kind of give you a quick overview of where we're going to go in this. And I want you to be aware that this depression was not just in America, it was around the world. Europe, Asia, South America, Africa, everyone felt the pain of the Great Depression. That's why they call it great. Great meaning not awesome, not good. Great means huge, monstrous. It impacted everybody. And it impacted everybody whether they were poor or whether they were rich. It didn't matter. They were all impacted by the Great Depression. But also, understand this. Great things come out of it. Difficult times, challenging times, bring out the best in people. The very best of humanity showed itself as people became creative. They tried new things. And great leadership rose to the top because it was needed. So just a couple things we're going to cover in this. First of all, around the Dust Bowl. There's these events called dusters. As an entire dust storm would take out an entire city. Well, you're going to look at this, it's going to be like a monster in a movie. They just take it over a whole city, wiping everything out. People could not see in front of their hand, in front of their face. They couldn't even see it. So it's almost like a monster movie we're going to study as we look at these dusters. We're going to look at great rabbit roundups, where they would round up rabbits. It was a crazy time. It's going to be a great study as we look at this part of the Dust Bowl. We're going to look at those who ran away, left Oklahoma. They called them Okies, and they would get on their carriages and anything they could, try to go to California, where there was a great harvest and there was crops coming in, and trying to find work of any kind. There was rumors. We're going to talk about that and how that was misused, and some lessons we can learn from that to apply today that you can use every day in your own everyday life. We're talking about the Last Man Standing Club. Wouldn't you like to be part of that? You'd be tough enough to handle being the last man standing. So the Dust Bowl is going to give us a lot of things. The Rainmakers. There's all sorts of fun, interesting facts. And then as part of this whole thing, all sorts of new things that took place. A lot of the green, a lot of the environmental procedures, things that we do today, came out of the studies and the things that we learned from the Dust Bowl. We're going to learn how they learned that, and then what we can apply today on that. Then the Depression itself. Great leadership, again, came to the top. And we're going to see that some of the programs, the president, Hoover did not do a whole lot. We'll mention that. We'll kind of go over that a little bit. We're going to focus on President Roosevelt. Franklin D. Roosevelt came up with tons of programs. He basically used every letter in the alphabet to name a program after. He was experimenting, trying all sorts of things. And in difficult times, that's what people do. They try what they can. Now, most of his programs failed miserably. They accomplished nothing. But there are some great programs, and we're going to focus in on a couple of those. We'll talk about several, but we're going to talk about these two that I think were really incredible. One of them was the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps. Great program. This took young men out of the city, and they put them to work. They put them in barracks, just like military. It was actually run by the military. Military officers were leading this, and it taught men how to live together, how to work together, how to support one another. And part of the requirements were that each of these young men would send money back to their families to take care of them. Some beautiful things come out of this. First of all, people were taken care of. The women and children were being fed. The men were learning great work skills. They built our national parks. They built some state parks. They built buildings that are still standing today. As of 2016, they built buildings that almost like 80 years later still standing in good shape. And it's pretty incredible what they pulled off. But even more important, these young men learned to live in barracks together, how to work together, and it prepared their hearts, minds, and bodies to be prepared to fight World War II. It happens right after the Great Depression. So the CCC is a great program, and I dream of other communities bringing back the CCC, finding ways to implement it, to teach young men and now young women to work together and function as a little community and serving one another. And then there's the WPA, the Works Progress Association, and this was like all sorts of different things. Work Progress Association or Administration, sorry. But the WPA was a great program that put people to work, building roads, fixing roads, pushing dust off the road, the dirt and dust off the road that had blown in. They did an incredible amount of work, and it was for those who couldn't go away to the camps. It was for local sort of folks, but they also had great jobs like photography. They hired people to do artwork. They just really beautified our nation. They did newspaper work. They did all sorts of things and kept people working. Now, in the midst of all this, there's corruption, there's evil, there's drama. We have a rise of an evil dictator in Germany named Adolf Hitler. He uses the Depression to elevate himself. We have challenges that come out within the government and within our country. There was a time when they double taxed everybody. Some people were being taxed over 100% of their money. Can you even imagine? We're going to take a good look at this Depression. We're going to learn quite a bit about it. But something that the Depression did that I really want us to take a good look at, there's things we still do today. We have rescue missions that came out of this. And soup kitchens. Those all became kind of the standard. That's how we do in a community. When somebody's hungry, we have a soup kitchen. That was learned during the Great Depression, put into practice. People were eating because people worked together. Banking regulations came out of that. But what's most exciting to me is this. We're going to learn about character. We're going to look at individual people, and not just as a big picture of all these people out of work and sad. We're going to look at individual families. What was it like to live in the Great Depression? You know, what you're going to find out about these men and women is that they had grit. They were able to overcome the difficulties, the challenges. No, they weren't happy. They weren't excited about it. They weren't dreaming of someday, boy, life is awesome here in the Depression. I am so glad that that duster came in and knocked out all my crops. That duster came in and killed my cows and my chickens. No, they weren't excited about it. But I'm telling you, they came through with resolve and strength, and they understood what was really important in life. And they're going to teach us exactly what is important. So I hope you'll take part of this whole course, that you'll enjoy it as we study the Great Depression from its previous to its beginning, the Roaring '20s, the excitement, the fun, the jazz. We're going to talk about the positive nature, all the optimism going on, and then the crash in 1929. There's actually two crashes, and there was actually several crashes as we actually go into the study and learn more about it. But people kept saving us, saving us, saving us, and then the Depression hit. But we come out of the Depression with men and women who are strong, who are bold, and who've overcome the challenges of dictators around the world trying to take over. So enjoy the course. We'll be back for more lessons later.